have and continue to provide for us. As we study this morning, please help us that we can understand and rightly divide your word. We pray as we learn that we'll be able to share that with others so that they can know about your word and the truth that's contained therein. For those who are not here, we ask a special blessing on them, especially those who would love to be here, but for health reasons are not able to be here. Forgive us, Father. Strengthen us. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. All right, as we continue in chapter 28, I'll just back up for a minute to chapter 27. And what we have is the birth of who? The twins, Jacob and Esau. And we see deceit on the part of Jacob. We see immaturity, just a lack of understanding on the part of Esau in selling his birthright. And now Jacob is blessed by his father, but he thought it was Esau. And then Esau comes in, and Jacob realizes what he has done, and Esau is he's furious. As a matter of fact, what did his mother say to Jacob? You're going to have to get out of here because he's going to kill you. You're going to have to leave because he wants to kill you. And so we're going to pick up there in chapter 28. And I have the text on the board, and I probably won't read all of that, but let's look at some of it. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply, that you may be an assembly of peoples." Now, let me just stop right there for just a minute. Who else have we studied about that his parents didn't want him to have a Canaanite wife, but send him back to his own people? Oh, yeah, Abraham did that with Isaac. And so now Isaac is telling his son Jacob, you go back home. As a matter of fact, he gets pretty specific, and I'll just put this up here. I don't know that I'll read all of that. To whom did he tell him to go? Go to Laban's house. And Laban would have been his uncle. You go to Laban's house, and you choose a daughter of his. And so as Isaac makes his way toward, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, Padan Aram, as he makes his way there. Let me look at verse 6. Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take himself a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of the Canaanites." Now, this map here at the very bottom on the left-hand side shows Beersheba. And then as you go to the north, you can see in the middle, if you can read that, there's the area of Padan Aram. And specifically, where would he go? Where was the family from? Where did they leave when they started toward Canaan? Okay, Haran, I think, is the name of the place. And so he's got a journey to make. He's not going to the next city to find him a wife. He's going to journey north. Tell me a little bit, before I read any of this, tell me a little bit about Esau.
Well, Esau's already married at least two.
Okay, Esau has a wife or wives. And what else about him?
They're from Canaan.
They're from Canaan.
He went against he knew his
father wanted him to choose others, but he went against his father exactly.
And it kind of sounds like he's made this plan on his own. This was, the marrying the daughters of wives of Canaan, that was his idea, and he did that versus the family setting up an arrangement.
Okay, all right. Do you think he did it thinking his parents would be pleased with that? And so what I'm looking at least what I see in that is just rebellion on his part. He is mad and he's upset, and he's going to do what he wants to do and forget about what somebody else wants him to do. And so he has Canaanite wives, and then he takes a wife from where, or who is the wife that he takes? Verse 9.
From Ishmael.
Okay, from Ishmael's family, a daughter of Ishmael, Mahalath. And then verse 10, it tells us that Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. As he's on his way, and we're down now to about verse 11, and let's just read beginning in verse 11. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven, and there the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants. Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. You remember in Genesis chapter 12, as God spoke to Abraham, and he blessed Abraham, and he told him right here, he's just repeating. And then he spoke to Isaac, and he told Isaac the same thing that he was told to Abraham. And now here is Jacob, and we have the same thing. It's through your descendants, beginning with Abraham, Isaac a descendant, Jacob a descendant, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. I'm going to give you all of this territory that you see. And the last thing that is said there, he says three things, and he says a fourth thing. The fourth thing he says is, I will be with you. Now, we talked about that some in the past, but you think about that. God says, and he said to Abraham, and he said to Isaac, I will be with you. Now, what does that mean to you or to me? The fact that God will be with us. It should be a comforting thought.
Jacob's fleeing protection.
I'm sorry?
Jacob's fleeing from his brother. He's leaving everything. I mean, he's having to give up a lot to get away.
Yes, you're exactly right.
What a comforting thought I would think this would be.
I agree. Tim, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Protection.
Okay, protection. Okay.
There was so much fear.
He was running for his life, really, wasn't he? He had an intent to get a wife, but he was running for his life. But you think about that, I will be with you. And God tells us what? Oh, he'll be with us. He'll be with us. Does God protect us? I absolutely believe he does. Now, does that mean that nothing bad is going to happen? That doesn't mean that. What it means is that no man can touch us in any way unless we allow him to affect our soul and our salvation. God is with us. I will be with you. And what a wonderful, wonderful blessing that it was. Now, Jacob, he comes to this place. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and, what's the name of the place that he comes to? It was called Luz at one time, and now it's being named Bethel or Bethel. Bethel. But he comes to this place. He finds a stone, puts it under his head. He sleeps. And then he sees this ladder reaching from earth to heaven and heaven to earth. And angels are going up and down. And when he wakes up, verse 16, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. What's the significance of this dream that Jacob has and these angels ascending and descending on this ladder? Is there any significance?
Well, we see God trying to get Jacob kind of, his plan was for things to happen through Jacob. And right now, Jacob's not on the right path. Going to get a wife from Padan is a good start, but that he's been deceitful, he has lied, he has caused all these problems. And God is trying to speak to him and get him to choose to do right, choose to turn left.
And you know, I appreciate that thought. When we think about Jacob, he has a lot of problems. And a lot of the problems he has, self-inflicted. He created. And he's not just running from Esau, trying to save his life, but he realizes that he's done a lot of things that are just not right. And that's right, he continues. As a matter of fact, I just made some notes as I was studying. You think about Abraham. He was deceitful in claiming that Sarah was his sister when they went down into Egypt. You think about Isaac. Same thing. He said that Rebekah was his sister to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. Jacob told his father he was Esau. Just flat out lied. And his mother helped him to deceive the father. Now we're going to see, I'm jumping ahead, but when he gets to Laban, what does Laban do? He deceives Jacob. And none of that's right. And I don't want to pile on, but I'm thinking you're getting just exactly what really you have done and you deserve. And then when we get to Jacob's sons, Israel's sons, he loves Joseph. And what does his sons do with Joseph? And what do they tell Dad? An animal killed him. So all through, and I said this one time, somebody read, well, I guess it's okay for us to be deceitful and to lie. Look at all of these men who are called men of faith. But no, that's not right. What it shows is these men of faith were human beings. Go ahead, LeBron.
Well, they had a lot of problems. But we do see as they age that they do mature and they get closer to God.
That's exactly right. And I think Virginia said in one of the classes, it's a process that we see in them. And here is the process. The process is like this. Going up. The process is not like this, or it's not like this. They are becoming more mature. As you say, they're getting closer to God. Their concern is pleasing God. But it's just interesting as you look at each of these, how much deception there is. And I don't believe God approved that at all. But what we see also is, in all of this, is the will of God being carried out. It absolutely is. It absolutely is being carried out.
Well, Isaac and Rebekah aren't happy with Esau's wives, but he was 40 when he went and found his wives. They didn't make any, it doesn't appear that they made any provision to seek wives for him that they would have approved of. And so he took matters into his own hands. And then, in seeking out the daughter of Ishmael, he's doing his best to that didn't make them happy. They're sending my brother to get a wife who's a relative, so if I marry a relative, maybe that will get their approval. They dropped the ball. with Esau.
How was Jacob when he went to get a wife?
Over 40.
Yeah, he's over 40. He's over 40. What we see, and we talked about this last week, what we see is, what was the problem with Jacob and Esau's parents?
They play favorites.
They played favorites. Mama, she was playing favorites toward Jacob, and Daddy was playing favorites toward Esau. And we made the point that that's always a bad, bad, bad situation. And what that leads to, oftentimes, is just more bad situations. Now, I want to tell y'all a secret. I don't want my brothers and sisters to know, but I was the favorite in our home. My parents never told me that, but I just knew that. And I guess it's okay to know that. Just don't tell other people. I have no idea. They loved all of us. But there was no doubt by the way that Rebekah and Isaac acted who they favored. And Isaac, did I say that right? Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau. That's right. I sometimes get confused. But they had done wrong in showing favoritism. Well, when Jacob wakes up, he realizes this is the place of God. And so what does he do? He takes that stone. I've often wondered, I don't have any idea, and it really makes no difference. I guess if you, I've never put a stone under my head to sleep, but you may have, and I'm not in any way making fun of that, but he takes this stone, sets it up, and what did you say? Okay, he pours all oil on it. Let's just read verse 19, well, verse 18. Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city had been Luz previously. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and keep me in this way that I am going, and give me bread to eat and clothing to put on, so that I come back to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. And this stone which I have set as a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give a tenth to you.
We still see some spiritual immaturity here with Jacob. He thinks that the place is special, and he's got a very transactional view of his relationship with God. If God gives me these things, then I'll serve.
And as I read that, let me just ask this: was he saying, if you do this, I will do this? God, if you'll do this, I'll do this. If that's what his intent was, then his thinking was absolutely wrong. God, what had God told him? I'm going to be with you. I'm going to give you. All this land is going to be yours. Your descendants are going to be like the stars. And so Jacob is still struggling with some things. And I don't want to pile on. I'm just thinking, what Jacob's mindset was. We know it wasn't where it needed to be. But again, maturity plays a big part in all of these people's lives. And I hope it's true of us. I can think of when I was 18 to 20 years old, I'll tell you this: if you had a Bible question, I had a Bible answer. And you know what I thought about my Bible answer? It was right. It was right. And I'm not saying it was wrong, but what I realize now is that I didn't know much. That's right. It was egotistical, prideful. I'm happy to tell someone, here's what the Bible teaches, and here's what I believe it means. Somebody said it says what it means, and it means what it says. There are some things that are a little more difficult to work through. But I'm open for anybody to talk to me about anything the Bible teaches, with the attitude that if you can help me learn, I want to learn. It might be that I can help you, but we have to be open. And you see, as a young man, well, he wasn't that young, but they still weren't. He still wasn't mature, and hopefully we mature as we grow older.
But he's really only about, what, a quarter of the way through his life at this point? Because he lives to like 170.
Mm-hmm. That's right. He's still got time to learn. I've gone too far. All right. Any other thoughts on chapter 28? I don't want to rush through this, but if there's something that we need to talk about, or you think of that needs to be said, please do that. All right. When you come to chapter 29, it says, so Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. He looked and he saw a well in the field, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. A large stone was on the well's mouth. What were they waiting for? Okay, somebody had to move this stone in order for them to be able to give their sheep drink, and if they had cattle, drink as well. Verse 3, now the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from the well's mouth, water the sheep, put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. And then Jacob has some questions. As he's standing there, what are the questions that he asked, beginning in verse 4? Okay.
Laban, the son of Nahor.
That's right. First of all, he says, where are you from? Where are you from? And they tell him, Haran. And then he says, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? And they did. They knew him. And he asked, is everything well with him? And they say he's well, verse 6. And then they not only knew him, they knew Rachel. Here comes the bride. That's not what it says, but here comes Rachel. And what was her responsibility?
She was in charge of the sheep.
Okay, she was a shepherd. She was a sheep herder. Verse 7. Then he said, look, it is still high day. It's not time for the cattle to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go and feed them. And then the response is, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and they've rolled the stone from the well's mouth. From the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. He's speaking, and what happens? What does the next verse say? Verse 9. He's speaking, and here's Rachel. Does it remind you a little bit of
Servant Rebecca Shawn.
Yeah, Isaac's servant that goes looking for Rebecca? And he's to ask questions. She's to give him drink and then also say, I'll water your sheep. It just happened. No, it didn't just happen. God's hand was in all of this. And we see God's hand here as Jacob meets Rachel. The stone is taken off of the well.
Jacob takes the stone off. He gets to play the hero a little bit.
Okay. And it says, verse 11, Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Why would he do that?
Joy, relief at finding his father's or his mother's
All right.
faithful.
Here's relief. Here's joy. I've been told to come here and to find a wife from Laban's family. And it says at the end of verse, he goes to Laban's house. They embrace. He's brought into Laban's house. And Jacob tells him everything concerning what had happened. And it says he stayed with him for a month. Any comments on those first 14 verses?
It's very similar, it really is very similar, very parallel to the story of the servant, how he's welcomed in, and given whatever he could have asked for, made welcome, stay with us as long as you like.
Did it look like they objected to kissing on the first day?
Well, it doesn't look like it, does
It
it?
doesn't necessarily mean like he kissed her on the lips.
Oh, but it doesn't. But it doesn't say he didn't.
It was also a common degree and then also have Laban kissing.
Yeah, it was a greeting. It was a greeting that they had. But that's right, Gary. On the first time they met, they kissed. We can certainly say that. Or he kissed her. And then as he goes into Laban's house, we see Laban expressing his gratitude, love for Jacob. Now, this is where in verse 15, things begin to get dicey. Laban says there in verse 15, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be? Now, that seems like a good plan.
At this point, it sounds like Laban wants to deal fairly with him.
Yes, it does. Sounds like a good idea for Jacob. Let's see. Then it came to pass when Laban heard. Nope, I didn't get it forward. So Laban has two children, and they are two daughters. They are Leah and.
Sons as well, we'll find out.
Okay, Leah, who are his daughters? Leah and Rachel. Who's the oldest? Leah. Rachel's the younger. What does the Bible say about each of them?
Leah's eyes were done, but Rachel was beautiful.
Okay, what other, you may have a translation that uses something other than Leah's eyes were delicate. Weak. Tender, one translation says. And what does it say about Rachel? She's beautiful. Yeah, she's beautiful. And so Jacob, it says in verse 18, he loved Rachel. And so he agrees, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. And when Laban responds, we've got it there in verse 19. What do you think Jacob is thinking when Laban responds there in verse 19?
He's going to be excited.
It's a deal. It is a deal. I will serve 7 years for Rachel, and I love verse 20. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. Now that's love right there. 7 years. But it just seemed like a few days.
Jacob probably 50-ish.
Probably somewhere around there. Does that ring a bell in anybody's mind? I'm not saying anybody serves your future father-in-law 7 years for your wife, but did you do some things that might seem kind of extreme? I don't mean wrong, but kind of extreme when you were trying to win your wife? Yeah. Most of us did. LaRon, how far was it from your place to Kathy's place?
An hour and a half.
An hour and a half. each way. But how many times do what? Uphill both ways. How many times did you think, man, I can't believe I'm making this trip? You just didn't think that. I drove a distance. You just don't think anything about that. If you love somebody, then you do what needs to be done. And that's what Jacob is doing. And so he serves for 7 years, and then there is a feast, a party that is thrown. Verse 21, then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her. Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah's daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. And he also gave her a maid, and what was her name? Zilpah. Jacob wakes the next morning, and what does he find out? This is the wrong woman. This is the wrong woman. And what was Laban's explanation?
Well, I can't give away the younger.
Yeah, the older one has to marry first. And the problem is, he didn't make that clear to Jacob. Jacob was working for Rachel. And so Laban, he says, well, I'll make another deal with you.
7 more years.
You know, you can have her after a week, but you're going to have to work 7 more years. And so that's what he did. He served Laban another 7 years. Now we start seeing the children of Jacob. In verse 31, how many women were involved in the children of Jacob? 4. 4.
And the jealousy between the wives goes back to this trick Laban played. That if he had just played fair with Jacob, and explained the situation, or just given him Rachel to start with, we wouldn't have had all of this.
That's right.
But you can understand why they are bitter and angry and jealous. I'm not saying they should have maintained that, but you can understand why they're not getting along very well.
I certainly can. I'm not a woman, but I can certainly understand that. And so when you here you have Rachel, here you have Leah, and what are we told about Rachel as far as bearing children? She was barren. She was not able to bear children. And what are we told about Leah?
God saw she was unloved, so he opened her womb.
Okay. Now God played a part in that. She has a son, and his name is Simeon.
Reuben. First one's Reuben. And their names are all significant.
Reuben, I jumped ahead of myself. Let me back up. Verse 32. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. What does the name Reuben signify? All right, let's just read what the Bible says, verse 32. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, the Lord has surely looked on my affliction.
The literal is behold a son.
Behold a son. And then she has a second son. His name is Simeon. What I'm looking at here.
Because God heard her that she was unloved.
Then she conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And then she conceived and had a fourth son. Third son. Levi. I've got it right here in my notes. I'm just not looking at my notes. Levi was the third son. Therefore his name, I've borne 3 sons, therefore his name was called Levi. She conceived again and bore a son, and his name was Judah. And so the first 4 children that are born to Jacob is through Leah. And still, Rebekah is barren.
And she's still the favorite.
She is. And so what was Rebekah's idea? Well, let me stop there. That gets us through 29. I'm not trying to run through it, but does anyone have anything they want to say about chapter 29?
Well, and Levi's name means attached. She's like, 3 boys, surely now, but no. And then Judah is celebrated.
Okay.
And Judah was the descendant, he was the remnant of
That's right. That's right.
through him came Jesus.
That is exactly right. Rebekah, chapter 30. Rebekah's not able to have children, so what is her thinking?
Same as Sarah, so we get a surrogate here.
Okay, so she's going to give her maid, what's her maid's name? Bilhah.
Her name's Rachel. Yeah, you said Rebecca like 6 times.
Excuse me, her name is Rachel. I'm sorry. Rachel. Rachel was barren. And so she gives Jacob her handmaid Bilhah. And she bears 2 sons. The first one is Dan, and the second one is Naphtali. Now I looked at each of these names just to see what Strong's had to say about them. And Naphtali, it means my wrestling. My wrestling. And let's just read. I skipped the first part of 30. Let me go back to the first part of 30. What does Rebekah say to Jacob?
Give me children, I'm gonna die.
And what was Jacob's response? He was angry. Who do you think I am? I'm not God. God is the one who has withheld fruit of your fruit, the fruit of the womb. And so she gives Bilhah, her servant. Dan's the first one, as we've mentioned. Naphtali is the second one. Verse 7, and Rachel's maid conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with great wrestlings, I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. And again, that name is just my wrestling. And so you can see the contention that exists between Rachel and Leah. Well, what happens to Leah? She's barren. And so I know she knows what has happened. So she thinks, okay, well, I'll just give Jacob my handmaid. And so she does, Zilpah. And she bears Gad and Asher. I have no, they're not really kin to me, but I claim them anyway. Yes, they are kin to me. It's my nephew and his wife. And they have a son named Asher. Asher. You don't hear that a lot. I'm hearing it more and more these days. And then God opens the womb of Leah. And Leah is able to have who? Okay. Issachar and Zebulun. Leah has Issachar, means he will bring a reward, and Zebulun, or habitation. And then she has a third child at this point, and that's a daughter. Her name is Dinah. And then God opens Rachel's womb. And she has the 11th son, and his name is Joseph. And we're going to see that it's through Joseph. Matter of fact, when we get to about chapter 37 through the end of 50, is really telling about the life of Joseph. And then the last son is born a little later, and he was Benjamin. What did his mom want him to be named?
Ben-Ami,
Okay, Benoi, Benoi, which simply means son of my sorrow.
she was dying.
She died during his birth, or when he was born. And it was Jacob that said, we're going to name him Benjamin. And so we have the 12 sons of Jacob, who we will see in the next few chapters. His name will be changed to Israel. And so here are the 12 sons of Israel that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. And so we see God's working in every bit of this. Let me ask you. Let's look at verse 25 of chapter 30. That'll get us to where we are. Verse 25 says, and it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said, please stay. Why did he want him to stay? God had blessed him.
Well, and also he doesn't necessarily want his daughters to be gone and his grandchildren to be gone and never see them again.
Okay, I can understand that too. But what the Bible tells us is, if I found faith, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. And then he says, name me your wages and I will give it. And so what is Jacob's plan? What does Jacob do? He separates the sheep, and he takes all of the speckled and spotted and brown, and the others he leaves with, and he moves them apart. They're not with each other now. These sheep are not with each other now. And what happens? What else does he do?
Puts the rods in the water to get more speckled and brown.
Okay. And not only that, but he takes the stronger, the better ones, and then what is produced? Better sheep. And Laban's sheep are the weaker sheep. We're going to pick up right there. Let's just say verse 31 of chapter 30. Lord willing, we'll pick up there Wednesday night. Our time is up and we've got people